In this video, we will be learning about three important relationships related to the bond market. The first relationship is that the value of a bond is inversely related in investors' present required rate of return, or in other words, the current interest rate. That means that if interest rates in the market go up, the value of the bond decreases. Why is that? If the interest rate in the market goes up, that means that the relative attractiveness of our bond goes down. Say, for example, we already own a bond which is giving us 5% coupon every year. So our interest earnings amount to 5% yearly. We bought this bond 2 years ago. At the time, 5% seemed like a good deal. Now let's say for some reason the interest rate in the market goes up to 6% now. Why would new investors want to buy this 5% interest bond from me? They would have no incentive to do that. Instead, they can simply go to the market, pay the same $1,000 and get a bond which would give them 6%. So they have no reason to buy my bond from me. This makes my bond less attractive, less profitable to them. Because of this decreased demand, the price of my bond would go down, because people are not going to be willing to buy this bond from me in the secondary market. Now, conversely, if interest rates in the market go down, say interest rate goes down to 3%, that makes my bond a lot more valuable, because people who are buying newly issued bonds from the market currently are only going to be earning 3% interest rate. But in my case, I'm already locked into a contract which provides me with 5% interest every year. This makes my bond more attractive to other people. They would be willing to pay a little bit extra, a little premium to get access to my bond to earn that extra amount of yield. So that exemplifies to you how an inverse relationship exists between the current interest rate and the value of a bond, the attractiveness of a bond. Another relationship, the market value of a bond will be under the par value if the investor's required rate of return is more than the coupon rate. So in plain English, if an investor requires a rate of return which is more than what the bond is offering, they would of course not be willing to pay the full par value amount. They would be willing to pay less. And that would make the value of the bond go below the par value. Now, of course, the inverse would be true. If the investor's required rate of return is less than what the coupon rate is, in other words, if the bond issuer is paying you more than what you require as a return from your investment, you would be willing to pay a little extra to get hold of that bond. And that would bring the value of the bond above the par value. It just so happens that markets have different names for these different kinds of bonds. When the market value of a bond is more than its par value, meaning you're paying a little bit of a premium, you're paying more, that bond is called a premium bond. On the other hand, when the market value of the bond is less than its par value, that bond is called a discount bond. So what differentiates them? In the case of a premium bond, the company is offering a coupon payment which is more than what investors require. So the coupon payment is more than the investor's required rate of return. In contrast, in a discount bond, the company is offering less than what investors require. So investors don't really have an incentive to go and chase that bond. So the bond has to be offered at a cheaper price, at a discount. So in this case, the investor's rate of return, required rate of return, is more than the coupon payment being offered by that bond or that bond's issuer. And if somehow both the required rate of return and the coupon payments are exactly the same amount, the same rate, the bond would trade at par. That means the bond would trade at the face value of the bond, $1,000, no premium, no discount. This relationship can be understood by the visualization provided to you on your screen. The middle point is a par bond. The bond on the left-hand side is a premium bond. Because the company is offering a 5% coupon rate, but investors only require 2%. So, of course, it's a more attractive bond. Investors are happy with 2%, but the company is giving them a lot more. So the investors would be willing to pay extra to avail of that bond. On the other hand, on the extreme right-hand side, investors require 8% return. They're not satisfied with any return less than 8%, but this bond is only offering 5%. Why would they lose out? So to compensate for that, the bond would have to be offered at a cheaper price, at a discount. So that's why you see that the value of the bond is $880, less than the par value of $1,000. And now the relationship number 3. Longer-term bonds have greater interest rate risk. So that means the longer the bond, the more risky it is. That is because the longer time to maturity there are more chances that things can go wrong. Interest rates can change. The probability that the company or the bond issuer would get into trouble and may not be able to honor their obligations also increases. And to compensate for that, longer-term bonds or the holders of longer-term bonds require a little bit of an extra premium and expect to be compensated for carrying this extra amount of longer-term risk. So that makes longer-term bonds valued a little bit higher than shorter-term bonds. And you will understand this concept a little bit more if you take a look at the main risks incurred by bondholders. They have to contend with interest rate risk, the probability that interest rates will go up in the market. Remember, if interest rates go up, that makes their bond relatively less attractive. But if interest rates go down, that would make their bond more attractive. But of course, we're not concerned about interest rates going down. That would make us happy. We are more scared that interest rates would go up. And in the case of a longer-term bond, the longer you hold that bond, the more risk you take on that interest rates would go up. And then there's the credit risk or the default risk, meaning that either the coupon payment or even the entire principal amount may not be paid back, especially if the company gets into financial distress or, in worst case scenario, bankruptcy. And also, there's another risk called the call risk, the fact that a bond, if it has a call provision, may be called before its maturity date. But this is not a universal risk because not all bonds have a call option embedded with them. But nonetheless, it is a risk that investors of bonds, especially those with a call option, have to concern themselves with. Finally, we will visit a small little concept called the credit spread. Now, the credit spread is the difference between the corporate bond yield and a risk-free rate. So the corporate bond yield is the yield associated with the high-quality corporation-issued bond. And the U.S. Treasury yield for this calculation would be a U.S. Treasury-issued money market instruments yield, which is of the same maturity as the corporate bond. So to make this concept simpler, let us assume that Boeing Corporation just issued a corporate bond with a 5% coupon. It is a premium bond, and the current yield to maturity of this bond is 3%. So this bond's maturity is 5 years. So to facilitate comparison of apple to an apple, let's take a look at the Treasury yield for the same maturity, 5 years. So let's say we find out that the yield of a 5-year U.S. Treasury bond is 0.5%. So that would mean that the credit spread here for a 5-year security is 3% from Boeing and 0.5% from the U.S. government, the Treasury. So the spread is 2.5%. The credit spread is important as an indicator to take a look at how high the market is thinking about the credit risk or the default risk. We will not get into much more details about the credit spread at this stage, as it is a slightly more advanced topic. I will reserve this topic for more detailed discussions in a future video.